democracy is that every participant inside society could decide the rules or how they're going to run their country. What kind of crimes should be, what kind of degree of crime should have what kind of punishment. We think these things, or morality, or those kind of value judgment is extremely fluid, and we think that people in society should have the right to decide. And it also could be, for example, social policies. How are we going to tackle the problems we have? We think this information that media provides to public about who did what kind of crimes and what is the context in that, we think that is extremely important information for the public to decide what they're going to do with their future criteria of laws or criteria of punishment, or how we're going to tackle that. And we think allowing the powerful, for example, police or courts, is not a good way to create that value judgment inside society. So we're very happy to oppose today's motion. So my speech, I'm going to talk about a couple of things. First, I'm going to talk about why the right to know is extremely important, because this information, how this information is important for the public to decide criminal justice system and policies. Second of all, about the role of media, of how it should be a watchdog of people who are in power. Thirdly, how it's counterproductive to actually the things that government wants to talk about discrimination and whatnot. Before that, a few levels of rebuttal. They're talking about severe harm of individuals, like that they're gonna be traumatized and that they cannot be integrated in society and whatnot. First of all, we don't think that all media outlets are going to produce every single crime that happens inside society. The majority of cases, it's not like your neighbors that everyone knows. Second of all, if it's to the extent that the whole country knows or the world knows, we think that you probably did a really, really bad crime that you kind of deserve it, right? For example, it could be like Omashini-kyo or white supremacy, killing in, or a mass shooting inside a mosque. We think in these kind of cases where people know, we think it's actually justifiable that you kind of have a miserable life. So firstly, about how this information is important for public to decide the criminal justice system and policies, right? Recognize that all the systems that we have in society, which is in a democratic society, it is based on the value judgment of individuals. And it's about how people in society or communities actually create their morality and judgment, right? And we think that people should have the power in doing that. And we think that this kind of morality changes time by time, and we always need to re-evaluate the current structures that we have and see whether we need to change it or not. We see many kind of cases. For example, the Sakakibara case inside Japan actually made society to re-evaluate juvenile crime, about how we should change it, how we could actually, is that too much crime or is that too less crime? What should we do about this? Or our OJ system also talked about how the jury system is extremely flawed and how we need to re-evaluate those kind of things. Or Birmingham incident also talked about racial profiling, of how that's good or bad. All these things spark discourse. And we think it's not enough just to have statistics, right? Probably it's going to be given by the Ministry of something once a year that probably media doesn't want to produce because no one wants to see them. They're just going to say, okay, there's this much crime. We think what's important is people are attracted to that and they see it on the news and they see it, they know the nuance of the crime, they know what happened, who did that. When they see those kind of faces, that's when people get interested in it. That's when it sparks discourse, so people talk about these issues and we evaluate that, right? But it's not just about criminality and stuff like that. We think social policies to actually prevent crime is also needed for this information, right? For example, what are we going to do about police brutality, about welfare? All these kind of things must be created within the discourse of public, and everyone should have the say. Even if they're stupid, even if they get look at Twitter a lot and stuff like that, we still think these people should have a say in deciding, no thank you, what kind of policies we're going to have for welfare or not, whatnot. So how is it going to be on government side, right? Because the information is going to be limited to people who have power, like police, courts, or prosecutors and whatnot. First of all, they should not have a say in the value judgment of what is going to be deemed as crime or not, right? For example, because there is, first of all, because they don't represent the entire population, right? They tend to be extremely highly educated, or they tend to be white people, or they tend to be the privileged inside society, right? Or they have conflicts of interest. Probably police brutality will have never been talked about in public, or what we should do about those kind of things in their side of the house. This is because people who have power always have specific kind of bias like they talked about, right? It could be black people or Hispanic always doing crimes, right? It could be the police system, or it could be the court, or it could be the politics inside specific states or local places, right? Because only if they have information, they're going to analyze everything and they're going to say, okay, maybe we don't need to put so much education in black people because they're going to do crimes again, or not giving enough rehabilitation facilities for these individuals, right? So we think the problem is on their side, is that very few limited people can decide the rules of society, and that people do not have a say in that. We think that's against the whole principle of democracy, and we think it's harmful, but sure.
Do you support the disclosure of military confidential information or disclosure of mental illness associated with a crime?
Well, about military, if that's going to provide secret information that may deter the country or put the country in harm, then yes, we think it should be disclosed, because, no, it should be private because it harms people. We think it's a completely different thing, right? Second of all, about the duty of media, right? We think the media should be a watchdog of people who are in power, right? They check whether they're doing their job right, and they let the public know, so the public could mobilize and have that self-correcting system inside society, right? We think it is in the role of the media to actually let the public know. So if there's things like police brutality, if there's things like white supremacy, and the court and the government is not doing anything about it, they have the right to know, and we think the media has the role to actually put that thing, get people know about that. So thirdly, about why it's counterproductive, right? Because recognize that stereotypical things still remain in their side of the house, right? Probably people in America, many people in America, probably gonna think that Black and Hispanic are criminals, or they're more violent and whatnot. We think these things are likely to remain because people get this, for example, from the community around them. Their family or friends talk about these things, like Black people tend to be violent. Maybe that person next to you is a criminal and stuff like that. We could see it on films, TV, broadcasts, where a Black person, it tends to be the bad person, tends to be someone who's extremely violent. So what's going to happen in their side of the house is when those stereotypes remain, and all of a sudden that information does not go in society, people are going to get information from like random individual blogs who say, hey, I just happened to see the crime, or they're going to like see these kind of tweets and actually see and decide that, okay, maybe all Black people are criminals and whatnot, right? And like right-wing populists could use this as a rhetoric about how we need to exclude all immigrants, or how all Black people are rapists, and we think it's extremely harmful, right? At least in our side of the house, media, we don't think media is that bad as they portray. We think that they tend to want to provide the truth, because if they don't, they're going to see as uncountable, uncreatable sources. They may be labeled as fake news. We think they have the incentive to actually provide the truth, right? Or provide the backstory or the upbringing of that person, whether that person was in poverty, or whether that person had a mental health issues, and how we need to address those kind of things, right? And we think that since we broadcast these things, we think at least it won't be just Black people are criminals, or rather they tend to be in a problem of, for example, poverty, or they tend to be in this kind of situation that's harmful. So we think on the comparative, yes, we may not be able to solve it, but we think those kind of stereotypes are rather perpetuated on their side of the house. So for these reasons, we think the laws inside society, what kind of policy should be upheld, should be decided by the public, and media should let the public know about this information. Very happy to oppose.